March 14th, 2 o'clock on Monday, the 1st of February. Can we start the ball rolling, Mandy, with apologies, please?
Thank you, Chair. I've received apologies from Paul Darby, and just for the benefit of anybody watching on the webcast, the members attending the meeting are Councillors Adams, Edgler, Edwards, Gaskin, Holmes, Maxfield, Pearson. Councillor Sweeney is Chair, Yates, and Keith Walker is an independent co-optee.
Okay, thank you. Item number 3 is the minutes of the meeting held on the 26th October 2020. Has anybody got any comments or changes to make, or are you happy for me to sign them?
Sign them, Chairman.
Okay.
Chair, sorry, just one point on, I think it's Paris 70. It makes reference to some questions that were asked at the last meeting and the fact that we would receive responses to them. Sorry, it's item 76. There were 3 questions asked, and it said the Commissioner agreed to respond to the panel with the information. I'm not sure whether that response has been made.
The response has been emailed to all the panel members, but I can email it again at the end of the meeting.
I had my response.
Thank you. I've obviously been missed off the mailing list. Thanks for that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I've had my response.
What have I done now?
Have we lost the chair?
He's still online. He hasn't left the meeting.
We lost him on Friday. He's in Newcastle, isn't he?
Yeah.
He is. He's still part of the meeting, though. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but he could have froze and then gone off and try and get back on now.
Possibly. Vice Chair, would you like to take over? Councillor Walker, are you? Sorry, Mr. Walker, are you Vice Chair? Would you like to take over the chairing of the meeting until Councillor Sweeney comes back?
No, Mandy, I'm not Vice Chair.
Paul Darby's Vice Chair.
Oh, of course.
It's all going well so far.
It is, isn't it?
He's back.
We're back in.
Back.
Oh, excellent.
I know what happened there. It was all very exciting, wasn't it?
Mm.
I think I admitted Helen, and it all went strange. Sorry about that. Okay. Question number 4. Questions to the PFCC from members of the public. Have we got any, Mandy?
No, Chair. No questions.
Okay, thank you. Number 5. Decisions published by the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner. Joint emergency transport jets. Anything you want to say on this, Matthew?
Just this is the work that we've been doing to reinforce and make even better value for money the work of fire and police. So this is the piece of work where we've brought a much closer cooperation between fire service and the police service in the servicing of vehicles. It'll open up a lot of opportunities to save public money, to improve services, and I want to just pay tribute to both of the services for the ongoing work, which I think is probably not quite breakthrough countrywide, but not far off, and it'll result in a better service for both of the services and better value for money for the public purse. So it's quite a dry subject. It's a technical thing, but it's had to have good offices from both organisations to do what we're trying to do, and it's part of the rationalisation, spending money better, you'll be aware that Hanley Police Station, Hanley Police and Fire Station is now up and running, and that has meant the thick end of a couple of hundred police officers moving alongside fire colleagues in Hanley, and it's gone well. I have a problem now because apparently I'm going to turn off in 30 seconds and I can't stop it. Chairman, if I do
is it counting you down, Matthew?
Yeah, it is. I think I've beaten it. I think I've wrestled the technology into submission.
I felt
Yes,
confident, Matthew, that you'd be able to do that.
Apologies.
Yeah, go on.
The Jets is it you're on mute, I think, Chairman.
I don't think I am.
Oh, you're not now. Okay, sorry.
You were breaking up a little. One thing I'd like to ask, Matthew, is when I read
Yes.
this, the fire staff that are trooping over to the police,
Yes.
can keep the same sort of paying conditions. They have the choice
Yes.
whether to keep with that or to go with the police one. Where's the savings come from on this?
Well, it wasn't going to be savings through rationalising terms and conditions. We made very clear at the start that this was going to be around looking first of all to try and get everybody on the same platform. So this is not looking at fire services and police services separately, but genuinely having a single service that does both police and fire. So the savings will come in a restructure, which I think Glyn might be able to talk to you a little bit more about, a restructure which is going to happen over the next few months. But we took the view that as the two services cooperate together and work together more, Jets would be a very good area to be a candidate for changing the way that it has worked and bringing it into one service, and that's what we've done. So the savings, I have to be honest and say, are not significant in the first place, but the opportunities are, and Glyn has been very close to this. If you'd like him to add some detail to that.
Yes, please, Glyn.
Thank you, Chair. So this is primarily about efficiency, really. So this isn't about direct financial savings. This is about making efficiencies in the way that the joint transport services run. So you'll be aware from your previous role that there's been collaboration work around the joint emergency transport service for a number of years. What we were finding was that the opportunities that come from fire staff and police staff working closely together weren't being realised in the way that we had originally hoped. So whilst there'd been some significant savings, particularly for police, when the service was first established, the opportunities to get staff groups working together and more effectively as a whole were not being progressed, and that was partly because the line management arrangements, if you like, were separated. So we made a decision some time ago to look at options for the future. We looked at whether we could keep things as they are, whether the fire would be the better employer, whether the police would be the better employer, or whether actually we establish something entirely independent. We plumped for either fire and police, and then the Commissioner made a decision that on the balance of cases made, the police option was the better option to deliver those efficiencies in the long term. And that's really what that decision form's about. So as Matthew says, it's a little bit dry, because actually all it's doing is building on what we've already got, but trying to create the baseline for further efficiencies into the future.
Okay, so it's like a trial for the future, is it really? See how it goes.
Well,
Get both sets fully embedded on this one and then take it forward.
yeah, I wouldn't say it was a trial because I don't think it's something we would reverse. I think the opportunity to get fire staff working on police vehicles and vice versa is something that we want to see taken forward, and I think will be taken forward now as part of this arrangement.
Okay, thank you, Glenn. Any more questions on that one? Okay, should we move on to the bulk of this proposed police budget and precept, item number 6. You'll lead on this, Matthew. Is David going to do it?
No, I'll do an introduction if I may,
Okay.
Chairman. So I'm just going to go back a little bit, take the opportunity of looking back to when we all got together in the first place. You'll recall that for the first 4 years, we felt there were significant opportunities for the police service to work a bit differently, work a bit more effectively. And you will recall that I froze the council tax to encourage that work to be done, and it was done successfully. Hindsight would suggest that I perhaps wouldn't have frozen the tax to encourage that in the 4th year, but I did. So there we go. The second term clearly has benefited from the good work that the police did in making sure that it was a really efficient service from an inverted commas business point of view. And in recent years, the performance as far as ensuring Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent are safe has been even better. So I make no apology for squeezing a little bit in the first place. Over the last 3-4 years, it has improved even further. And in fact, I'm delighted and I'm very proud that the police service in the last 3 years have been leaders across the country in reducing crime, despite the fact that they've not quite had the benefit of significant increases in local council tax that many have been had available right from 2013. So what I would say is that the investment that we've put in over the last 3 years has been very specific. The Chief Constable wanted to invest in more officers in specific roles that we were very content to support, bearing in mind the value for money evidence that we've seen over the last few years. And we sort of, I guess, probably got ahead of the uplift with local taxpayers in Staffordshire investing extra money at my request. And I think it was 91 officers that we actually allowed the force to bring on board before the government came in with their 10,000 or 20,000, whatever it is, extra officers. I think it's 10,000 currently. So I've invested local money in not only police officers, but also in 35 specialist investigators who aren't police officers, but who play a very specialist and important part to it. Overall, I think the value for money that we've seen in the last 4 years has been exceptional. I think the force is being run in a tight and a very effective way. Crime is falling has fallen for the last 3 years in Staffordshire. Significantly greater falls in crime than I think probably one other place is just slightly ahead on the falls in crime. But bearing in mind the pause in significant investment, as I described earlier, to be in the position that they are now in, which is a good spending force and a performance-driven force, which is showing reductions in crime. I think we can, and the role that the panel have played in supporting the decisions that I've made as far as finance is concerned, I think Staffordshire can be extremely proud of not only the performance of the police, but also the value for money that they've offered over the last few years. And I'm happy to take any specific questions on that, or I'm also happy if you want to head off into the proposals for this year.
Okay, thank you for that, Matthew. David, are you going to lead on this, or is that it?
So yes,
I think this is going to be a bit of detail on top of what I've just said, Chairman, but if there's anything that anybody wants to ask me, I'm more than happy to answer it.
Okay, David, there you go.
Yes, so thank you, Chair. So there are 4 detailed budget papers that are on the agenda today. So you'll be pleased to know I'm not going to run through them all in full detail, but what I am going to do is I've got an overarching presentation that sort of picks up some of the key themes, hopefully, from the 4 budget reports. So I'm just going to run through this presentation, Chair, and then just take the recommendations that are contained within the budget report, just to conclude with, and then obviously take any questions that the panel may have following that. So I'm just going to kick off and just really reflect really on the context of this report, if that's okay. So members of the panel, it is a challenging financial position for the coming year and beyond. But when we look at this settlement and the Commissioner's preset proposal for 21-22, there is some short-term stability, which will be achievable next year with the budget proposals that are being considered by the panel today. Of course, as we all know, significant uncertainty does exist, into the medium term, and this does make planning very challenging into the longer term, medium term financial strategy position, which is very, very uncertain. And we do have a continuing gap as we move forward into the medium term. Not surprisingly, COVID is having a significant impact on the overall financial position, and hopefully I'll try and take you through how that's impacting as we go through the presentation. But it's not just around the impacts of COVID in the budget year, but also the impact also into the medium term. So government support has been made available for the budget year as part of the single settlement, which has supported the position for 21-22. So I'm going to run through the settlement numbers. That's really going to focus as well on the central government funding position, which this year, not surprisingly, continues to be focused upon officer uplift. And I'll give the panel an overall position in what that uplift looks like in terms of additional investment in police officer numbers from the uplift and also by the Commissioner. So importantly, as I say, there is some stability as we move into next year, and that is also supported by some government grants that we'll pick up as well as part of the presentation. So whilst, just before we move on, so whilst there is increased flexibility that's been given to PCCs for the forthcoming year, the Commissioner has considered the impact upon the local taxpayer for the year ahead and is not proposing to increase up to the maximum limit. So I'm just going to move on now and talk through the spending review position. So in terms of just some of the key highlights from the spending review. So firstly, in terms of that flexibility for council tax, there is a £15 limit that's been imposed for 21-22 for police, fire and crime commissioners. And of course, Matthew, I'm sure, may want to talk a little bit more about that in conclusion to my presentation. I think importantly, it has been announced that 75% of the exceptional council tax deficits that relate to the current year that have arisen from COVID will be covered by HM Treasury, with the remainder to be funded locally over the next 3 years. So we've been allowed to spread the 25% of that deficit that's being seen by the Commissioner. In terms of the council tax base, there is currently there's no compensation for lost growth in the council tax base, but compensation for a reduction in the council tax base has been notified to the Commissioner, and a grant of just under 1.4 million has been announced. There's also an expectation in policing that there will be nationally £120 million worth of savings. Staffordshire's share of this is 1.8 million, and the efficiencies are in excess of this, equated to 2 million that's covered off within the budget paper. So members of the panel, if you want to refer to that, that's within Appendix 7 of the report. Also as well, just to reiterate, the Chancellor did announce a pay freeze, which will be in place for police officers earning under £24,000 a year. And we need to remember as well, in terms of the negotiation for that, that's not all a local negotiation, so we need to just bear that in mind as well, because it is a risk as we move forward. Also as well, in terms of investment, there was some good news by the Chancellor. The Chancellor's removed the 1% increase that he'd put on to borrowing from the Public Works Loan Board, so that's now been reverted back to. It makes the borrowing as we move forward a little bit more affordable, as in term, and that's picked up within the Treasury Management Report. In addition to all that as well, we have got some national increases that are being passed on to PCCs and forces through the National IT programme. Now, in terms of just look at some of the key numbers, so in terms of that core policing grant, so that core policing grant was increased by £315 million, of which 7.26 million has been allocated to Staffordshire, in addition to the ring-fenced uplift grant of 100 million. Again, the share for Staffordshire is £1.483 million. So together these fund the uplift requirements for as we move into 21-22. And hopefully there is some flexibility around certainly how that core policing grant is utilised. But I think members of the panel, it's important to note that core grant is a cash flat grant. So excluding the uplift, grant remains flat. So in real terms, actually there's a year on reduction in terms of our assumptions around core grant. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about numbers. I've got a couple of slides to show you, but in terms of the uplift programme for 21-22, Staffordshire's share of that is an additional 89 officers to be recruited and to be in place before the end of March 2022. In terms of that police officer uplift, as I say, we'll talk about that in a moment, and we'll look at how that's reflected in a graphical presentation shortly. So I'm going to move on now and just look at some of the numbers, because obviously I like to look at numbers. So if we just look at the preset proposal for the moment, if that's okay. So the proposal that's put forward by the Commissioner, as included within the budget paper today, is an increase of 5.99%, which is an increase of £13.48. And is therefore £1.52 below the maximum that was allowed within the referendum and the proposals put forward by government. So the Commissioner did put forward a consultation that went out to the public within Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent over the Christmas period and into the new year. And overall, there's a 78% support from respondents supporting an increase in additional investment into policing for the budget year. So if we look at some of the numbers, you can see how this plays out in terms of the increase. So you can see the bandy would increase from 225.09p up to 238.57. So that's an increase of, as I say, of £13.48. And just if I may just point out here, you can see that gives us a total council tax increase of just short of £3.8 million. And you can see that's actually a lower increase than we saw last year for a much lower increase. And the reason for that is because of the council tax base. So the council tax base is actually reduced by 1.2% in year because of the impact of the pandemic. So therefore, that's taken £900,000 of income out of the precept prior to the 5.99% being added. And then on top of that, normally we would see a surplus in the collection fund. And for the budget year, we've actually got a deficit, which is the spreading of the deficit over 3 years of £200,000. But that's just to demonstrate for you, so you can see how the numbers have come through in terms of precept. Now, I did say that I'd just talk about headcount and police officer uplift. So if we just move on to the next slide, we can see the impact really of the uplift programme in Staffordshire. Now, there's some more detail within the budget paper on pages 13 to 17, which provides some more granularity, some more detail about the uplift programme. But you can see there, in terms of the total officer uplift, going up to 210 by the end of 21-22, and also the commissioner enabled investments, which have allowed the recruitment of a further 91 uniformed officers. Now, whilst I'll just mention, if I may, while we look at the overall uplift, in terms of the grant that's come through from central government has actually reduced that requirement down from 8,000 to 6,000 officers. But in Staffordshire, we're going to continue with the recruitment profile, which will take us up to 210 by the end of the budget year 21-2 and up to the 300 by the end of 22-23. So in terms of how does that look for police staff and PCSOs, we can see actually as well, and I'm not going to go through too much detail on here, but other than the fact you can see that in terms of the commissioners enabled precept investments, we've got another 35 members of staff that have come through as part of that additional investment. So I'm now going to move on and just really, if I may, I just want to take you through the overall funding position and what it looks like for next year. So this is the information that's contained on page 7 of the budget and MTFS report. And you can see the overall budget setting number there of 222,051. So that is an increase year on year of 9649. And then we can see within that, you can see the first line, you can see the increase that's coming through from the Home Office police grant. You can also see, we just talked about the precept increase, so the 3.8 million. We've got a reduction because the ring fence grant is lower this year than it was in the previous year. You can see as well that the 1365, now that's the local council tax support grant that's being received to compensate for the 1.2% reduction in the council tax base in year. And then finally, you can just see at the end there, you can see the shift really and the impact of the collection fund and what's happened year on year. So last year, you can see there was a surplus on the collection fund of 1.5 million, dropping to a deficit of 200,000 for the budget year. So now there's a 1.7 million shift in that overall council tax position because of we've now moved into a deficit because of the impact of the pandemic. So just moving on now, I just want to look at the MTFS. I want to just reflect for a moment, if that's okay, on the impact of the Commissioner's proposal and how that plays forward into the medium term, particularly when we consider the fact that we're assuming that the central funding from government remains flat into the medium term, but we have got, of course, that benefit of the 5.99% increase, which does help to support and reduce the gap as we move into the medium term. But of course, what we have still got a significant gap of just over 5 million as we hit into 24-25. So you can see that overall that is a slightly improved position than we reported to the panel when we updated the MTFS back in October, November last year. But it is still obviously, it is a significant issue as we move forward. And also we need to reflect on the uncertainty that exists at the moment, which makes that number more fragile, really. And we need to bear that in mind. Now, I just want to just go on and just talk about in terms of precept flexibility. So what would the precept increase need to be in order to close that gap in future years? And we can see if there is any precept flexibility offered to the Commissioner in future, then we would need an increase of 6.24% in 22-3, 4.37% in 23-4, and then a further 3.5% in 24-5 in order to basically close that gap as we move forward. Now, in terms of the assumption that we've got within the medium term, we're still assuming that overall there's a core assumption that the precept will be allowed to increase by 2.99% as we move forward. Now, in terms of the overall position of precept, and Matthew talked about this at the beginning of the presentation within his introduction. So you can see there on the next graph how Staffordshire sits in terms of the overall position of council tax increases, across the board. So you've got at the bottom end, you've got Staffordshire and West Mercia with 23.7 and 24.7, going up to the higher increases within West Midlands and Northumbria. But of course, you have to remember as well, this has to be taken into context because the forces are funded in different ways, and the precept versus the central funding position is different across nationally, is different across commissioners and across the police forces. So I just want to just move on now and just look at the risks really, and this is obviously the sort of stuff that I get concerned about. These are the areas where, as we move forward, we're having to make assumptions, and there is a full set of precept assumptions within the budget paper that's in front of you today. So in terms of some of the key, and that's contained on page 20 of the budget report, you can see the full list of assumptions, but I'm just going to go through one or two of them. Now, I've already mentioned the core policing grant and the fact that we're assuming that stays flat. So in real terms, that means that we've got a cut in funding as we move forward of around about 8%. Now, we've also got on top of that the pensions implications. Now, this is a very complicated area, but following the Sergeant and McLeod issues around the age discrimination, and we're now waiting for the government to actually come back and issue the consultation response, which apparently is due this week. There's a lot of work that needs to go in order to resolve the pension remedy, and the implications of that will be that there'll be significant increase in the requirements for employer contributions as we move forward because of that remedy. Now, the question that I offer to the panel, it really is, we don't know who's going to fund that increase at the moment. So is it going to be funded nationally, or will some of that additional funding requirement fall locally is a question. Also, as well, in terms of risk as we move forward, we've got the income guarantee scheme that is in place for the 75% for the impact on 21-22, but I think we need to reflect on the impact of the council tax base and how that plays out in the longer term. And within the report itself, it just demonstrates, and you can see actually the impact of the reduced council tax base and the fact that it is taking longer to recover into the medium term. We've also got pay, and in terms of assumption there, so we've got a 2% pay award assumed within the medium term financial strategy. Again, that is an assumption, and of course, we need to follow that carefully as we move beyond 21-22. And then finally, I've already mentioned this, we have got some increases as we move forward in terms of national charges, particularly around IT and the National Enabling Programme. So you'll be pleased to know I've only got a few slides left to cover off, if that's okay. So I just want to reflect at the moment, if that's okay, just around where we are now. So, I would like to report to the panel that significant progress has been made in the aim to build a safer Staffordshire that's been supported by the difficult decisions made by the Commissioner during the last few years on precepts and spending. And of course, those decisions have been supported by this panel. And what that's done, what that's enabled is funding, to fund Staffordshire Police to build a stable and settled operating model, which remains in place today. It's also allowed as to recruit additional police officers through that investment that's been over and above the uplift programme and the numbers that I've talked about. We've also got the implementation and the investment that's been permitted as part of those precept rises. Again, I'll just mention on page 32 on Appendix 7, we can see the delivery of identified savings across the Staffordshire Commissioner's Office and the police, which is identified at £2 million worth of savings. Now, in terms of the capital programme, there's a full capital programme paper that's in front of you today, but that capital programme does reflect the ambitions of the force, and it reflects the requirements, certainly the IT requirements and the investment as we move forward. So I think it's fair to say that ambition is fully reflected within the capital programme, and I'll come back to that in a moment. I think it's also as well important to reflect on the fact that the force have coped well with the challenges of COVID-19, and additional funding from government has enabled additional services to be commissioned by the Commissioner's Office during the pandemic. But importantly as well, crime levels, as Matthew talked about, have reduced, and also, in terms of improvements that have been achieved across the police force. Now, in terms of the increase in precept, whilst it is lower than the maximum increase, it does provide some scope for investment by the Commissioner. These areas will be carefully considered by the Commissioner to support the force strategies, which are underpinned by the force management strategy. And then these will include the modern policing strategy, its sustainability and affordability through ambitious capital programme, which includes continued investment in technology and digital capability. Will ensure a modern working environment and fit for purpose facilities, and an estate which includes a proposal for an operations hub at Staffordshire Police HQ, which will incorporate a new firing range capability. And also as well, it's importantly as well, the continued investment in fleet to ensure the resilience and ongoing efficiency. But we've also got investment to improve service delivery and drive outcomes. This is both obviously through the police uplift programme that I talked about and the precept investment initiatives. And then finally, ensuring the future stability and the sustainability of the model within across Staffordshire Police, and the continuation of the force ambitions and plans in the face of uncertainty, both financially and in an uncertain operating environment, and also through embedding the ongoing impact of the precept increase to support the delivery, obviously, of the transformation programme, and to exploit the benefits and obviously realise those savings as we move forward. So I'd just like to summarise really before we move forward to the recommendations. So in summary, the good news is that we've got a balanced budget that's presented to you today, that's incorporated within the budget paper and the medium-term financial strategy and the supporting papers. So importantly, again, as well, there is some stability for the budget year that's been provided through the settlement, the government grants that have been announced, and also the precept proposal that's put forward by the Commissioner today. I can't underplay really the significant uncertainty that remains and makes it very challenging into the medium term. And I think, it would be welcome if there is a 3-year comprehensive spending review settlement announced by the government in the CSR 21. The Commissioner this year has decided not to ask for the maximum increase in council tax for next year. And also there is some room for investment to support the ambitious capital programme as we move forward as part of that precept increase. So this will build on the officer uplift programme and the previous investments that have been provided by the Commissioner, and further support the aim to make Staffordshire a safer place to live and work. So if I could just move on, Chairman, just to the recommendations. And this is not an exhaustive list of the recommendations, but I'd just like to run through the key ones with the panel, if that's okay. So firstly, the panel are asked to examine the information that's presented within the budget paper today, and of course the associated papers being the capital strategy, the reserve strategy and the treasury management strategy. The panel are asked to note and support the revenue budget requirement of 222,051,000, which is shown within Appendix 51 of the budget report, which includes a council tax requirement for 21-22 of 83,197,000. And that's, please note, that's before the collection fund deficit has been taken into account, and that's shown on Appendix 5 of the report. So the panel are asked to support the proposal to increase the 21-22 precept for the policing element of the council tax bill by 5.99%, which is £13.48 and is equivalent to 26 pence per week, and will increase the Band D council tax up to 238.57 from 225.09. I'd also like the panel to note the statement by the Commissioner's Chief Finance Officer on the robustness of the budget and the adequacy of the proposed financial reserves. And that statement's included on page 25 of the report. And finally, I just really ask the panel just to note the additional information provided within the capital strategy and the summary capital programme shown on page 24, the reserve strategy and the summary shown within Appendix 2 on page 27, and also the Treasury Management Report. So I'm going to conclude there, Chairman, but obviously happy to take any questions that I'm sure Glyn and Matthew are regarding the proposals that are in front of you today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, David. If I can make a few comments to start the ball rolling. I feel this is we're in a slightly better position than perhaps we were last year. Is that fair to say? Without getting over the board.
Currently, Chairman, but there are challenges going forward.
Well, obviously,
and obviously, as you know me well enough by now, I wouldn't. It was a difficult one, this one, because of the current circumstances, and it would be ever so easy just to put your hand as far into people's pockets as you possibly could. But I took the view that that wouldn't be appropriate, and that we would want to have some limited investment in policing, but at the time and the place that we're at the moment during COVID, I decided just to not go for the maximum.
Thank you. Yeah, you virtually answered every question I had, David, which is quite impressive. You're happy with the level of debt that the police service carries? That's not an issue for you?
Chairman, if I can come back on that, so obviously the level of debt is included within the Treasury Management paper and the capital programme. So obviously there is an increase in the level of debt over the medium term, and so far, part of that reason I mentioned is the investment into the proposed investment into the operations hub, which incorporates the new firing range facility. Now, the Commissioner has seen and supported an outline business case, but he's been very much clear that investment needs to be subject to a full business case and approval as we move forward, because what that investment will do, it will increase the borrowing requirement as we move into the latter part of the medium-term financial strategy. So we will need to look at the overall level of borrowing as we move into sort of 23-24. But as I say, that is a substantial piece of capital investment, Chair, and is one that is still subject to a final business case and approval by the Commissioner.
Okay, and you happy with the level of reserves that we're carrying?
I think, Chairman, if I can come back on that, I think overall, and I'm sure a number of members of the panel will remember, if we go back 2 or 3 years, that the Commissioner through strategy, and I know the Commission never wants to hold reserves that aren't necessary, and wants to make sure they're kept to a minimum. But the overall financial position has improved over the last 2 to 3 years. The overall level of reserves has improved to a level that, as the Section 151 officer for the Commission, I can honestly say that I'm more comfortable with. So the answer to that is the reserves are in a better position, Chair. Okay,
thank you. The only other point, I say you answered most of them as we were going through, was that the pay seems to have gone up quite a lot, David, considering that's a pay freeze. Is it all the new officers that we've got?
So Chair, this will be obviously the impact of the uplift programme and the investment in additional officers. So so the pay bill has increased.
And that's down to the new officers, is it? That's done that.
Yeah, so that is a significant part of that increase, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that, David. Right, I pass it over to the panel now. Anyone want to put the hand up?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, and thank you for your presentation, David. I think we've got to understand it's a very difficult time, and the public out there are really feeling the strain, and some with losing their jobs and everything. Matthew, I've got to say to you as Commissioner, you've got to show the public that this is value for money, and I say that in the nicest possible sense, in the fact that people have got to see, and I know what your answer is going to be probably, but police forces are changing and policing is changing, but people are still complaining about not seeing PCSOs round and about and that is, to people, the general public, that is value for money, to see their police officers out and about, you know, and I just beg you, please, if you can implement that in some way. I'm not saying every day or everything, but at least show the public that they are getting value for money, and that will answer a lot of the public's questions when they see the precept going up. Thank you for that. And also to add, I don't know how we explain to the general public about an £18 million being spent on a firing range. That is an awful lot of money, but I'll leave that with you. Thank you.
Well, that will be a decision of the next commissioner, not me. I've approved the doing of an outline business case. Certainly wasn't going to prevent the force from doing that if that's what they think they need to do. But it'll be for somebody else to decide on whether that gets built or whether that is done in the way that is proposed at the moment. Just on the confidence that I can shorthand that to as far as policing is concerned. Let's just remember that absolutely agree that visible policing is important. I generally find that if there's more visibility, people want more and more and more visibility, and that is absolutely right. That's what the police are here to do. However, crime is becoming very, very much more complex. The specialist roles and the work of Staffordshire Police is amongst the best in the country, and the performance as far as crime reduction over the last few years is absolutely in the top 2 or 3 compared to most forces across the country. So, I think that it would have been very easy to try and ask local people in the current circumstances for yet more money. I couldn't do it. I wanted to recognise the fact that people are losing jobs, people are being furloughed, and in positions like this one, I think it's very, very important to have some sort of sense of what feels right, not just doing the calculations and the sums and things. So I would argue that the 91 officers that people have bought locally through the precept over the last few years will unquestionably have a bigger impact in visibility. And I would also argue that the investment in the roads team and the specialist services is also making a difference. But, it's absolutely right and expected that people would want to see a police officer on every corner. That's not going to happen, but you can rest assured, and you can look at any statistic that you want, and you will see that Staffordshire Police are doing jolly well, no matter what the circumstances are, and even better when you take into consideration the current challenges.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for that, Matthew. I've just got to say that, the police force, I am really proud of Staffordshire Police, I've got to say, and I think they're doing a really good job. But I just want to speak up for the general public.
I quite agree.
Thank you, Anne. Any more questions? Simon?
Yes, I've got, yes, I was just about to mention on the 91 officers that have been increased on those officers, there was 35 specialised officers. Are they included into the 91 or are they on top of the 91? And also...
That's on top. That's on top.
Lovely, thank you. And the other one was just to reiterate, the more visible policing that we can provide, the better, because as has previously been said, that's what the public want to see, and they do request that we ask that at these particular meetings.
Absolutely. Can I just say that I've had quite a lot of feedback from people who've commented the fact there seem to be more police vehicles on the roads. Actually, there are a few more, but it's a change in the way that Staffordshire Police are doing things this last year or two, so that they're making sure that they're very visible at big traffic islands and this sort of thing. And I've had some positive reaction from the fact that people seem to think there are more police around, even though across a place the size of Staffordshire, 95 officers is welcome, but wouldn't make quite the difference that certainly I've heard people suggesting that they've seen more police. So, you know, it's a work in progress. And as I said before, Staffordshire Police, I think, are amongst the best in the country, if not in the very top of the best in the country, on understanding just how important visibility is. And you will have seen the new blue and yellow vehicles that have been seen on the road, very smart response vehicles. And those too have been recognised as a step in the right direction.
Thank you. And the other thing was, how are you going on with the increase in number and the uplift that you've got the grant for from the government? Are you able to get the numbers of people that are required to fill these spaces?
Yes, and with the PEQF qualification, which Staffordshire's Chief Constable got really ahead of the game on, we're in a very good place. There's intakes coming in all the time, and of course the new qualifications in policing which were required, Staffordshire are ahead on that as well.
Okay, thank you, Simon. Any more questions? No, I can't see any hands going up.
I've been let off easy there, Chairman.
I think you have, yes.
It's
Mandy,
a good story, though.
See what happens now.
Sorry?
Do you want to brief the panel on what happens, Mandy, with this now?
Yes, Chair. There are 4 recommendations that you've been asked to approve. One of them is to consider the precept. The panel can either support or veto the precept that's proposed today. If you do veto, it has to be made by 2/3 of the total membership of the panel, which is 8 members. If the panel do veto the proposals, you need to give detailed reasons for that, and the Commissioner would bring another report to the 22nd of February panel. At that meeting, the panel would be able to accept or reject the revised precept and make recommendations, but on that occasion the Commissioner wouldn't need to agree your proposal.
We can only turn it down once, can't we, at the end of the day?
Yes.
Right, if nobody's got any more questions on the budget, should we continue with this meeting to the end? And then I think we ask Matthew to leave, don't we? And then we discuss it, and then Matthew comes back in. I think that's what we normally do. Am I right in that?
Yes, Chair.
Yeah, okay then.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, no more questions, Matthew. Then we'll move on to the next one, which is the National Conference for Police, Fire and Crime Panels, National Association of Police, Fire and Crime Panel AGM feedback report. Mandy, do you want to speak to that?
Thank you, Chair. The Vice Chair, Mr Walker, and myself attended the National Conference for Police, Fire and Crime panels, which was hosted by Warwick University in November. Because of the pandemic, it was a virtual meeting, and it was decided that the meeting would be spread over 3 days instead of the usual one. The normal format for the meeting was still followed, so we had a number of keynote speakers, followed by question and answer sessions in the morning, and then themed workshops in the afternoon. The report summarises the keynote speeches and the workshops that were attended. I'm not sure if Mr Walker wants to add anything to that summary, Chair.
No, I don't think I need to add anything to the summary. It's quite an extensive brief of what went on in the conference. Only to add that I thought Becky Bryant did a fantastic presentation, and it was really well received, and she came across as being very professional.
I think Becky is, Keith. I think she's an excellent speaker when you see her in action. Okay, is it a worthwhile event to go to, this conference, do you think, in future?
Normally it's a one-day conference.
Yeah.
This year, with it being online, it was a 3-day conference, which was, well, for me, it was too long, really. But I'm not sure what the future holds, whether they'll revert back to an actual conference or they keep it online. But 3 days was a very long time for a conference.
Yeah. What's technology like, Keith? Did that work all right?
Yeah, it was good. It was excellent, actually. Yeah, the Warwick University did a great job of supporting the conference. The technology was brilliant.
Good. Okay, thank you for that. Anybody want to ask questions on that? No. Okay, we'll move on to number 8, which is questions to the PFCC by panel members. So away you go. Anne.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Well, I forgot to mention when I last spoke about thanking the fire as well, authorities and that, for the good work that they do. So thank you. But I've got 3 questions, actually. I'll start off with the first one, which is my understanding is that you talked about government grants. There's a government grant coming out called Project Adder. I don't know whether Matthew's aware of it. It's £148 million, and it's to do with the prevention of drugs. And I wondered if you got any say in that, Matthew, whether Staffordshire is included in that. My understanding is it isn't, but why isn't it? That's my first question. Excuse me. My second question is, you talk about reduction in crime, Matthew, but my understanding is, speaking, and I've had this brought to me actually only yesterday by a member of the public, Simon Bell, asking about the crime increase in Stone and what is being done about it, because there's a great worry in the Stone area about the increase in crime, which is quite prominent at the moment. So I'm asking the Commissioner what can be done about that. My third question is, my understanding is there's a smarter approach to sentencing, a white paper that was brought out in January. Excuse me. And it's thinking about young offenders. And I understand there is, well, excuse me. There is a pilot scheme being brought out called Secure Schools. This is where young people have got into trouble with the law and they're placed into secure schools. And I understand there's a pilot scheme being done in Medway. And I wondered if Staffordshire was thinking about anything like that, or anything that they could do with this similar sort of thing, thinking about the young offenders that we've got. Thank you.
Chairman, through you. So the project that you mentioned, I have to admit that I'm not aware of, but I will make absolutely certain that we are aware of it after we leave this meeting. I think you and I have talked many times around the issue of the appropriateness of, particularly with younger people, whether it harms or whether it benefits the public when people are put into a custodial sentence. I think you know that my instinct very strongly is that, particularly with younger people, I think that whole lives can be ruined through short-term foolishness of individuals, and clearly there are some crimes that need a robust sentence or a robust approach to them. But you and I, and many times, have talked about restorative justice. We've talked about the ability for the authorities, not just policing or probation, but the authorities to, if you like, guide and help people onto the right paths in life, particularly when they've come from homes that have been, shall we say, long-term customers of the police. And it's about trying to release and give opportunities to those people. So I'm absolutely with you on that, absolutely 100%. And on Stone, Stone, I think is not quite what it seems. I've spent significant time this morning looking at what is happening in Stone. I think there is a little bit of embellishment of what is actually happening there. Stone is a very, very low crime area and still is a very low crime area. But I have asked officials, and I spoke to the Chief Constable this morning with regards to what has been going on in Stone. There are one or two issues which I'm happy to talk to you about offline, but I wouldn't want this to be blown up out of all proportion. And I think it is at the moment. And I say that with the very, very clear knowledge that any crime is a bother to communities and to local people. But the sense that there's a massive crime wave running through Stone at the moment, I would have to say I don't agree with that. But there are some specific issues that need dealing with. Chief Constable is looking at those at the moment, and Staffordshire Police have been very, very proactive. And I understand that there are one or two people in the last 48 hours who are now not free to do what they were doing, and in fact are in police custody.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman. Can I just come back and say the project, Matthew, is Project ADDER, ADDER, and the secure schools, as if the to do with the smarter approach to sentencing. So I would appreciate any sort of answers on those.
Yeah.
Okay.
You. So that yes, sorry, that's an extension of the thing that I mentioned, but I'll come back to you offline on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Tony.
Thank you. Mine was around the PCSOs. It's nice to see that some of them have been promoted into the force as policemen. But again, as Anne has suggested, there's no vision of these people anymore on the streets. We used to have them in the village, wandering around. I used to see them on a daily basis doing what their jobs, travelling around. But we seem to have lost a lot of them, and I don't know where they've gone. And my other one, I shall leave for the next commissioner, the police firing range, because I think that's a lot of money. And that question would have been, well, what did they use before? So those are my two questions. PCSOs, when can we expect more? And the firing range, we'll leave to the next commissioner.
So as far as PCSOs are concerned, you're right. I wouldn't call it a promotion into policing. It's a different sort of job. But yeah, there's clearly a lot of people that have moved from PCSOs into the opportunities that have appeared as far as police officers are concerned. I think there has been a very, very small reduction in the number to compensate for more police officers. However, I'm aware, and quite rightly so, that any of the police officers, any of the PCSOs who have changed and stepped into a different role as police officers, clearly those spaces will have to be filled up as soon as possible. And I will, after this conversation today, bring that up with the Chief Constable to look at timings for recruitment into PCSO roles that have actually turned into police roles.
Thank you very much, Matthew.
Pleasure.
I think, Matthew, for the new commissioner, I think we'll have this this firing range on our sort of work programme if we can investigate it a bit, because it's quite exercise for members of this panel. I think the £19 million, and it's the sort of thing I think that this panel could probably do with having a look at and making comments on the business case. And we'll actually, I mean, you know, a firing range, but £90 million, presuming it's a lot more than just a firing range.
So just to be clear, this will be a role. This will be a decision for the new commissioner, whoever it is. I have, and I couldn't stop them. They can do a business case on whatever they like. I've had an approach from another commissioner to say, shouldn't we be sharing this? I have a great view that it's worth looking at. The force are very clear that they would like to do this specifically for Staffordshire. The business case, the outline business case, I'm not going to say they can't do, because they can, but it will be a decision for the new commissioner which way they go. And I've only this week received a communication from a police and crime commissioner colleague reinforcing the fact that they too would like to look at doing it jointly. But I don't think the current Chief Constable of Staffordshire wants to go down that route, but there's a long way to go. This will be several months down the line, and the new commissioner and this panel quite clearly will also have a view as to what their thoughts are on the direction of travel.
Yeah, thank you, Matthew. I think this panel should have a view on it, because it's a lot of money for taxpayers of Staffordshire to pay. Yeah. Okay. Any more questions, Matthew? And your hand's up. Is that a residual one from before?
I've just put my hand up again.
Oh, go on then, Tony. Oh, no,
so, yeah, with the just going on with the firing range, is there an increase in firearms crimes within Staffordshire to warrant more firearms usage?
Across the country, there has been an uplift in firearms capabilities, which I think is probably quite right. Staffordshire also had the uplift. The reason that this is coming up is because the range on the outskirts of Stafford is going to become in due course a development opportunity for the landowners. So my office, working with the force, have managed to secure a longer term, slightly longer term for the police to keep using the range, but it's not going to be a long-term opportunity. So something has to change. The proposal, the outline proposal that I've said, yes, absolutely, an outline proposal has to be done, will be tested by the new commissioner, tested by yourselves and others. And I'm sure in the next 3 years or so, something will happen with regards to a firing range, because it is an essential part of the police kit.
Okay, thank you, Matthew.
Thank you, Matthew.
So that's Simon and Tony have all got your hands up. Are they all there? All hands up.
They've all gone down now, Chairman.
They've all gone down. Not on my screen. They haven't, but in mine.
Okay.
I haven't got my hand up now.
Okay. Any more questions for Matthew?
Yes, please, Chair.
Leslie, go on.
A couple of questions. I'm really pleased that the amalgamation of Hanley Fire Station and Police Station has gone well, and wonder if there's any scope to put police into the fire stations in the other towns in Stoke-on-Trent. As we know, it's a very unique city. Lots I get, and I know my fellow councillors get lots of flack about there being no police stations open because everyone in Stoke wants 5 of everything, or 6. So just wondered if there's any plans to lodge anyone in those other fire stations. And the second one is again around PCSOs. It's my biggest complaint from my constituents. I know several of my colleagues in the Stoke North area have the same. I personally, on my ward, have gone in 2 years. I've gone from 2.3 PCSOs to 1.3 PCSO, and recently my 1 PC allocated to the ward has now gone down to a part-time position as well. So I'm really thin on the ground of allocated resources to the Burslem Park ward specifically. I know my friends in neighbouring wards are exactly the same. It's absolutely paramount to the general public that they see police on the beat, and we're just not seeing that at all. I've not seen that on my ward personally since my PCSOs left to join the police force, which is a good thing, but ultimately it leaves us very short on the ground for day-to-day patrols.
Chairman, I will commit to talking to the force and understanding whether this is a time lag because of the move from people who were PCSOs to being police officers, or whether there is something slightly different going on here, which I don't think I'm aware of, but I will absolutely talk to the Chief Constable and come back to you in the next week or so. Can I just talk about collaboration? Collaboration is ongoing. I think that where 2 professional services can work together very closely, you will be aware that some of the support services have now joined up. So the fire service and the police service have combined to have single support services in certain areas. It's not suitable for absolutely everywhere, but the fact of the matter is that Hanley is a very large, or was a very large, fire station. It gives me the chance to dispose of an asset in the old police station. It makes great sense to have these 2 organisations working closely together, as their key role is to keep people safe. And I'm delighted. I haven't been up there because of COVID and everything else, but the reports that I'm getting on how well it's landed and how well the fire service and the police service are living day to day, I am relieved and very, very pleased about. And of course, the first one that we did was in Tamworth. I visited Tamworth beginning of last year, I think it was, when it first happened. And yet again, thick as thieves, not particularly good analogy when we're talking about policing, but really, really working together well, being imaginative. And I think that this is a way forward, and there are certainly more in the pipeline if the new commissioner decides to carry on, which I absolutely would say that they should do with the closer relationship between police and fire. It saves money for the public. It actually also, they, as professional services, they find ways of not only rubbing along together well, but they find ways of using each other's skills and specialisms to a greater extent, like on open land search and this sort of thing. There's been some really good, ingenious ideas since the collaboration has started, and I think it will only gather pace as well as saving money because we can use less buildings.
Thank you for that, Matthew. Certainly hear good reports from Hanley, I must say.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah, okay. And your hand's still up. It's not the question, or is it left over?
No, my hand's down, Chairman. I don't know why it's showing on your...
It is now. It's just gone off.
Well, it's been off for a while. Sorry.
No, it's technology in Newcastle, then. It's not as good. Okay. Any more questions then, please?
Yeah, Chairman, if I could just ask a question. Matthew, you said about the next commissioner. If the elections are moved in May, is there a plan going forward that we should maybe know about?
I'm led to believe by government that the elections are not going to be moved in May.
So would this be, looking at my diary, would this be your last meeting with us all?
I think I've got a fire meeting that is due. So so not yet. You haven't quite got rid of me yet.
I won't thank you for what you've done then yet.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley.
Very kind.
Okay, any more questions, if anybody? No, we're all done. Okay then, Mandy, what do we do now? Apart from ask Matthew to go stand in another room.
I think if Matthew and his officers can leave the meeting, we can pause the meeting so the webcast stops.
Yep.
You can have your discussion, and then I can invite the officers back to the meeting with the Commissioner so that you can report back to them and we can unpause the meeting, the webcast meeting.
Are you going to text us when you're done? Because we won't know.
Can Mandy just put them into the waiting room?
Yeah, that's in effect what it does. If you leave the meeting, I can request you to join and you'll get a message on your screen if you stay in Outlook.
Okay, so we press the leave button, yeah?
Yes, and then I can ask
Very
you
good.
to come back. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We're live. Thank you, Chair. The meeting is back live again now.
Okay, thank you, Mandy. Matthew, we've discussed this at some length, as you can imagine.
Yes.
And, the panel is happy to support all the recommendations on page 1 and page 2 of item number 6, which is the precept in full. And Mandy will let you know the reasons and everything afterwards.
Chairman, thank you very much indeed, and thank you, members.
Yeah, thank you, Matthew, and I'll thank you officially at the next one, and all your police staff as well.
Yeah,
for the job they're doing in making Staffordshire the best place it is to live in.
Good. Thank you very much. I'll pass that on absolutely to the Chief Constable.
Okay, great. Is that it, Mandy? Mandy, you muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Chair. Yes, I'm happy with that. It's just the work programme that's still outstanding on the agenda. If you want me to run through that.
We don't need to take an official vote on these recommendations, do we? We've done that before, haven't we?
You did it when you were adjourned, but it would be good for a public record if you could just ask everybody to agree.
Okay, is everybody in favour of the recommendations on page 1 and page 2? If not, can you let me know?
Agreed, Chair.
I don't see anybody saying.
Agreed, Chair.
Agreed,
Chair.
Agree by me.
Agree.
That's great. Okay,
Agreed.
thanks. Okay then, Matthew, thank you for that.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. Thanks, members.
Talk about the work programme. So if you want to leave us now, feel free.
We can go. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
Thanks, Chair.
Mandy.
Okay, Mandy.
Yes.
That's another little thing when for the general public point of it, is when we are voting, we should actually read out the name of the person and put agreed or disagreed.
I think it's different in each authority.
Well,
on that
yes,
one, yeah,
yes,
we do.
It is, but this is for the general public.
Mm.
So basically, they can see who has agreed and who hasn't. So when we've got, like, it's nice to say we've got unanimous vote, but they can't see that on the webcast.
No, but they can hear you saying agreed, and the chairman does ask for anybody who opposes it. Sorry, Chair, do you want me to just run through the work programme?
Yes, please, man. We can do that for the fire one, can't we, in a couple of weeks?
Yes, definitely. Yes, the next meeting,
Yeah,
if that's what you like.
Fire away, man.
The next meeting is the 15th of February, when you will have the fire and rescue budget precept. And just to mention that we've had to move the 22nd of March meeting to the 10th of March in order to miss PERDA for the elections. I did notify all members of that change, and I think everybody was happy with the 10th of March. Just wanted to formally note the change.
And we want to put something on the work programme about this this shooting gallery thing he's having.
Yes, Chair, if you want me to put something into the work programme so that the new commissioner is aware of your concerns, and as soon as a detailed business case comes, we can ask for it to come forward.
Yeah. I mean, 90 million quid, you can build a full leisure centre for 90 million quid with a pool and everything, can't you?
You can build a lot more than that.
You bloody can, yeah. But we'll see. Okay.
The next meeting on the 15th, we've got the meeting before the meeting again, and I've got 2 dates for that. I've just looked, 12:30 and 1 o'clock. Is it 12:30 again?
12:30, yes. The 1 o'clock ones were when we were in the rooms, you know, face to face. I'll make sure those all come out of your diaries, and it's the 12:30, so you get a break in between the preview and the actual meeting at 2.
That'll be a help.
Yeah, it'll be a quicker meeting as well, I think. Okay, everybody. Thanks very much. Thanks for your contribution. I'll see you on the 15th.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye now.
Chairman.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Yes, there's a lot to be said for live. A lot to be said.
Yeah.
It is 2 o'clock, everyone. IT have informed me that we are now live.
So be careful what you say. Hello, Chairman.
Hello, Matthew. Everybody, I think if we can do the normal procedure and everybody turn off the videos and the sound unless they particularly want to speak. It seems to be the way these things work and seems to work quite well for everybody.
Do you want me to do that as well, Chairman?
Well, you'll be speaking in a minute, Matthew, so now I think you probably stay on.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody's happy to see you, aren't they? So, okay. Well, everybody, welcome to the meeting of the Staffordshire Police Fire and Crime Panel on the 14th